Welcome to the Design Icons podcast, where we talk to creative leaders about work, life, and beyond. Design Icons is brought to you by Noun Project, the world's most diverse and extensive collection of icons and photos for every project. Today, we're speaking with Khyati Trehan, an internationally awarded graphic designer and visual artist. She's currently working at Google Creative Lab developing visual systems and experimental tools with an impressive array of personal side projects that illuminate the intersection of technology and creativity. Khyati previously worked as a senior communication designer at IDEO in Munich, and she's done design work for clients like Apple, Instagram, Warner Music, Snapchat, Adobe, Samsung, Gumroad, and Absolute, just to name a few. In this episode, we talk about curiosity as a design mindset, the bright side of emerging technology, and how career creatives can prepare for the future through play. Khyati, thank you so much for joining and taking the time to chat. To start off, can you share your background for any listeners that aren't familiar with you yet? What are some of your favorite highlights?
So I'm a graphic designer. A pretty traditional graphic designer. I went to a design school and then just had a bunch of careers and a lot of hopping around. And that background is pretty straightforward, but I think the defining thing in my journey is that I haven't been at one place for more than 2 years ever until now. Like, this is the longest job I've held on to. But I think a lot of it was, in retrospect, pretty intentional. Like, I knew that I wanted to be someone that does a lot of stuff. So it was always like a full time for a couple of, maybe a year and a half, and then I would have freelance stints between it. And I've kind of done this back and forth for a while. I went to school in India. I went to design school called NID, but every time someone asks me about my journey, I go way before that because I think it was so foundational. I studied at this school called Mirambika, which I guess people might be familiar with, like the Montessori school of thought. It was kind of close to that, not exactly. And it was a free progress school till the 8th grade. So what that means is the teachers were trying to help figure out what you're good at versus like prescribing a syllabus, which in India is pretty abnormal because education can be pretty like regimented. Like, you even wear uniforms to school. So in this like free progress method, a significant part of your day was something called topic, where I just decide what I want to do, what I want to learn about. So you're giving kids this agency to make projects. And because I felt like I always had a choice when it came to learning, as soon as I started learning, I have a pretty healthy relationship with learning. So it was clear that I would pick something up out of genuine curiosity versus like obligation. So I think that's kind of come through. And I guess there's been a bunch of milestones, but the first big project was the beauty of scientific diagrams. It was just a college project. And I've always been interested in sciences, even in school, even though I didn't pursue it. But I was reading this book called The 10 Greatest Experiments. I'll have to look it up. But it was teaching you, it was showing you like some of the most beautiful inventions. And there was one I couldn't understand. It was around like blood circulation, and William Harvey had discovered it. And while I was trying to understand it, I was trying to draw a diagram, even though there wasn't one in the book. And when I was drawing it, I was like, oh, this kind of looks like a W. And I was like, wait a second, William Harvey, initial W. And the diagram that he's made looks like a W. So it became a series of letter forms that integrated the initial of the scientist with the discovery or invention that they made without distorting it to the point that it becomes unusable. So still had to do some research. But that was my first thing where I was like, wow, I can combine the things that I'm interested in with the thing that I'm learning how to do.
That's so cool. And I feel like the mention of curiosity and science and even sort of the career path of no longer than 2-year stints, it tracks because like when I saw that project of yours, it reminded me a little bit of, like, in a good way, a children's book, like sort of breaking down information in a way that, because I'm not very great with science, so I was like, oh, this is so interesting. So
It's so funny that you say children's book, because this has kind of been at the back of my head that I don't want to be an adult if I don't have to be. Like, I think when we learn these rules and then we box ourselves, and then it's so hard to unlearn. And kids just have this inherent freedom. And yeah, I have to be like deliberate about trying to have this like childlike angle to work.
yeah, I think we let the pressure of being grown sort of push us in directions that we may not have even gone in if we had just let ourselves kind of be curious and be ourselves. So I totally agree.
Yeah, for sure.
Your journey has taken you from India to Germany, and now you're in New York. You've also been involved in type design, brand design, visual art, some fascinating work in 3D design, and you're working in visual systems and technology now too. How do you feel like this diversity of experiences has shaped your unique approach to creativity?
Yeah, I definitely get this a lot, and I'm trying to sum it up as well as as well as I can. And I think I identify as a sum of parts. It feels like I'm collecting a bunch of these tools, but they're merging to not be a little bit of each thing. They're making something new. And I think there's like a liberation in not feeling beholden to a specific identity, style, or voice, or even capability. There's some things I feel like only I can do because I've had a taste of these three things. And this broad practice just means that I can be involved in so many more parts of the work. Even if I'm not actively involved, I can help direct people because I've been there at some point, or at least been in that vicinity. And again, like I just mentioned, the childlike thing. I think it's this bouncing around and trying this buffet of design has helped maintain a bit of a student identity. Like having done so much, I know how little I know. Like I interned at a type foundry forever ago. And if I hadn't, maybe I'd feel like brazen enough to call myself a type designer after just pulling some Beziers and drawing a few letters. But now that I know what it actually takes to be a type designer, I'm like, okay, I know I'm not one, but I can work really well with type designers. So yeah, I think this jumping around and practicing parts of design that feel distant have also made me a little more self-aware.
It's so interesting to me that you said a sum of your parts, because I studied psychology in college, and immediately what I thought of was this gestalt perspective of being greater than the sum of your parts. And that's sort of what I gather, I think, from your path, at least hearing you talk about it a little bit. It's like maybe that curiosity and that diversity of focus sort of created something really special and greater than the sum of the parts for you. And I don't know, I mean, looking at some of your work too, that's what struck me about it. But
thank you. That's a very big compliment. I will take it.
your work really seems to thrive at the intersection of design and emerging tech. What role do you think design can play in shaping how these new technologies are seen and understood by the public?
I think we've always been taught this narrative that design thinking, you first learn about what people need and then you solve their problems and design for it. But in reality, that's just not how a lot of research happens. And also, like, there's good and bad parts to it, but research wouldn't move as fast as it does if people weren't focused on just making something work rather than checking, oh, do people need it just yet? So think of it as like labs doing experiments. They're kind of doing the experiments for the sake of experiments, and that space needs to exist. But I think that's when like designers can come and figure out, okay, you've made this thing, it's brilliant. How do you add context to it? How do you make sure that now that you've arrived at this new tool or way of working, how does it add value to people's lives? So I think that's where designers can come in because they understand people, they have empathy. When it comes to like metaphors around tech, straight off visually, there's this idea of like streams of code and glowing blue brains and robots and men in suits. And that perpetuates such a shallow and outdated understanding of digital systems. It also is associated with this unreal, out of reach future that's painted in sci-fis. But tech is so much more integrated in our lives day to day. And it's not something that's happening somewhere far away. So even, I know AI will come up at some point, but even spell check has been using AI for a while. And we don't think of spell check as this futuristic technology. Like, sure, when something's spelled incorrectly, that's not where AI is used. But if you're typing, say, you are welcome and you're welcome, AI is using some understanding of context to know that even though you spelled something right, this is not what you were trying to spell. So it's just far more human than we think it is. And I'd done this project called Visualizing AI with DeepMind. This is way before I joined Google. And it was pretty much about this, like creating a library of images that people can use when they're talking about tech that's not, robots. That is inspired by, like, we literally had 2-3 hour long conversations with scientists, engineers, ethicists at DeepMind to accurately visualize some of their research areas like digital biology or AI research in nuclear fusion for, energy efficient futures. And all of this work didn't look too far away from the editorial design work I do for the New York Times. Like, it really felt like I'm just supplementing any other opinion or article or research space. So yeah, I think tech is more human than we think it is.
I think it's so interesting too, because there is especially in design, a powerful narrative that tech is sort of this maybe oppressive or, scary thing. And, from your perspective, you're seeing design sort of bridge the gap between that human sentiment or that human value and the perspective that tech is sort of not this dehumanized force being laid upon us, but it's being created and kind of shaped around our needs and around our experience. Is that right?
For sure. And tech can be dehumanizing as well. But that's also who gets involved in decision making. If it's, I don't know, tech from the point of business is very different from a company that's working with new technology, that's involving people, that's doing user research, that's involving designers. So yeah, I think these spectrums exist, but you've seen that those like super futuristic visions tend to fizzle out if nobody finds value in them. So you need to involve people, you need to involve a design thinking mindset for something to sustain, for tech to be actually interwoven into our lives.
So like actually delivering human value.
Yeah.
On the note of value, there's no shortage of big logos in your portfolio. I see Apple, Vogue, Instagram, Snapchat, Absolute, and Samsung, among many others, in your past client list. Can you bring us into the room and share what it's like working with major global brands like these? What steps would you recommend to folks that want to earn these types of big opportunities?
So it usually just starts with an email that's landed in your inbox. It's like any other project, whether it's from a big client or small. And in all of this, there's two kinds of relationships that you can have with this client. One is you are, say, a contractor or you're collaborating with them. So you kind of feel like an in-house designer and you're solving a specific problem with a bunch of other people. I haven't been in those kinds of collaborations as much as I have been in the second type, which is like you're treated kind of like this external artist or you're hired for your voice. So when I worked with Snapchat, for example, they were like, okay, we're going to send you a bunch of spectacles, which are these like wearable tech that records 3D videos. What do you want to do with them? And then I have like the freedom to play with them. And the brief can be as fuzzy as like, what does joy look like? Or when I worked with the Oscars, they reached out to 8 different artists and they asked, how do movies transform and inspire you? And I can decide what me specifically, like, why do I watch movies? And then I had to translate it or visualize it in this Oscar statuette. And then like YouTube Music reached out to me specifically because of my identity. Like, I'm Indian. So if when they had to make a bunch of Diwali playlist covers, it made sense that it's an Indian festival. Someone who's an Indian designer will have a specific, point of view. So it made sense for them. And obviously, like, combining with, I'm sure they had some sort of creative direction and it kind of matched something they've seen in my portfolio before. So yeah, for a lot of these kinds of engagements, it's clear that whoever's inside that place, their job or creative direction is just figuring out who's the right person to work with. That becomes your day job. And sometimes I am that person. And my style and my art direction comes with hiring me. I wish I could be like, oh, do these 3 things and this will definitely happen. And tomorrow Vogue is going to reach out to you. But there's unfortunately no secret sauce to getting big opportunities, except for, being in the game for a while. Like, when you put all these names in a sentence, it might seem like this, huge tsunami of stuff has happened to me, but I've been in this a professional for more than 10 years. And these are things that have happened at specific cadences. Yeah, I honestly don't have anything outside of, like, you have to do work, you have to do good work, and you have to make your work visible. Like, that's the only actionable thing. And this idea that if my work is good enough, someone will like discover me and I will be found, that happens, but you can't fully rely on it. And you have to be I wouldn't say own PR, but you won't be found if you aren't seen. And a website is great. Like, I know that's the first instinct that designers have, but it's kind of like having a shop in the middle of a desert. Like, you're kind of hoping that people will drive by and just find this link with your name.com. And in contrast, sharing work on social media might feel cheap and weird, but it is kind of like the mall. That's where people are at. You'll just have a lot more eyeballs because you're meeting people where they are. And then there's something in between. Like, I think this podcast, for example, this feels like the neighborhood shop. It has a following around it, some regular listeners. So conferences, small talks. These, again, I don't think I've ever done a conference where I like reached out to someone, be like, make me talk at your thing. So this also happens because of your body of work. Someone will reach out. But I definitely tend to say yes a lot more than I say no to an opportunity to share, what I've been working on. Yeah, I guess the other advice is, I know people reach out to, there's LinkedIn's and art directors. Even knowing who to reach out to is helpful, because sometimes people reach out to me for a Google job and I'm like, I'm not making the hiring decisions. You will get nothing out of reaching out to me right now. Maybe reach out to the talent lead, or in the case of like, if you want to do editorial illustrations, reach out to art directors. Wait, actually, this does remind me of the one time I reached out and it was actually fruitful. And it's a chance thing. Like, there's this brilliant creative director called Arsh, who had recently joined New York Times at that time, and I already followed her. And she had put out a post saying, hi, I'm starting this new job and I'll be working with artists a lot. Email me if you want to work. And that's what I did. I just emailed my work and said, hi, I want to get into editorial illustrations. That kind of like started this new stream of work for me. But as someone who gets a lot of emails, I feel like I find myself responding to emails where the person who's reached out to me just sounds like a human being versus, this professional talk that's reaching out to people. So yeah, I guess make your work visible in all these different ways and write like a person, I guess, when you reach out.
That's honestly really good advice. And part of what I heard too was persistence, like just kind of being able to put in those initial years, because those opportunities do seem to open up more as you put your work out there, it seems like. But I also heard a theme of optimism, and I don't know if you would describe yourself as an optimist, but it seems like there's a lot of hope and a lot of sort of positivity in the way that you're approaching your work, and sort of like it's not just to find a paying job, it's things that you like to do, it seems like.
Yeah, and while I say share your work, I think that can be conflated with make work that's shareable. And I kind of had to rein it back and remind myself also. Like it's so simple, but it was a moment of recognizing, oh, why am I making only stuff that's a square? Because I was thinking about Instagram as an outlet, and I had to catch myself from doing that. Like, oh shit, I'm becoming the thing that I, do not like. So making experiments for myself, and then thinking about let sharing be a thing that you do later if you feel like doing it. Making yourself visible is not the intent of making the work. I think that's like an important reminder while working. I also happen to be a designer in the time when Instagram wasn't a thing. So I never thought about an audience. And I think that is far more top of mind for people who are just coming out. So they might have to like remind themselves more often than I had to.
If you're enjoying this podcast, you might also love exploring millions of beautiful icons and photos at nounproject.com. Our community of designers and photographers from over 120 countries is building the most diverse and extensive collection of icons and photos ever created. Since 2010, Noun Project has been the go-to choice for the world's top brands and best designers. Check us out free today at nounproject.com. Social media has this interesting double-sided experience of, it's not only addicting to use the app like and consume the content, it becomes addictive to create it and to sort of think about, suddenly all your ideas are, oh, this could be a great post or something like that, and yeah,
for sure. I think that's why it's so helpful to, even if there's an audience, let it not be this invisible follower number audience, but an audience of friends. Like I look more forward to sharing the work that I've made with my sister and my mom than anybody else. Or if I have an idea, I want to blurt it out to my husband and riff on it, or a bunch of friends. Like that's a more valuable audience to have, if that's a driving force at all.
Yeah. Do you feel like you get like a more valuable sense of feedback in those interactions before you share it with a broader audience?
Exactly. Like that's when you work on something. And while I'm talking about work, there's work that happens in the office, and there's enough of a feedback system and colleagues, but a lot of the work that I'm talking about is stuff that I'm doing for myself and experiments, and they're usually, it doesn't look glamorous. Like if you had to zoom out and put a camera on me while I'm making this stuff, it's just one girl sitting on a couch with a laptop. It's a very solo endeavor. And I think I did that a lot in the beginning of my career, where I would just, if I liked something, it would be done and I would call it a day. But I just share my work so much more now with the people that are sitting right next to me. Like I think when I can share something and then get feedback on it and then respond to that feedback and like actually have a discourse and sleep over it and then come back and take that same idea to someone else and let all these voices add value to the thing and make it richer, that's just so much more valuable and makes the work better.
It's hard not to see social media in some ways flattening that feedback experience, where you're getting the likes and the supportive comments, but you don't really get the deeper level of feedback that might actually make something meaningful to you or the world.
Yeah, it's also that I think I learned this at IDEO a lot when I worked there, is the difference between quantitative data and qualitative data. You learn a lot through quant, from numbers, and it'll point to like what's rising to the top and what isn't. But you'll never understand people's motivations and the why without having 1 hour at home interviews. And that's kind of akin to, you know, a bunch of numbers on social media and actual discourse with people around you.
I love that. On that note, what type of design tools and habits have you learned to lean in on to support your work? What's changed for you over time and what hasn't?
This is very recent, and this is something I'm really excited about right now, which is vibe coding, because I always looked at these bespoke design tools huge brand studios made, where they like involved a developer that made this specific tool that's a deliverable for a brand, or all these like really cool interactive creative coding projects. And that always felt so far. And I've done the Code Academy course like 5 times, and somehow it hasn't stuck. But I've always wanted to be able to make things that are programs. And now with vibe coding, like I use a lot of Gemini Canvas and Google AI Studio. I also use Claude and tools that allow you to basically, AI helps you code. And then there's also a little like preview toggle so that you can see what that code looks like, because I wouldn't understand it otherwise. And that's allowed a new kind of work to come out. Like instead of, say, a poster, I can make a new design language that feels flexible, or I'm making tools specifically for this one thing that I want to do instead of, say, go to After Effects. There's this design culture of like protecting, the files, the C4D files and the .psd files, and the developer culture is very far from it. Like you can quite literally right click inspect, and there's a lot of like copy pasting code, and there's a lot of openness. Like your portfolio is the lines of code, like the behind the scenes of the thing that you've made. And I think I'm imbibing a lot of that culture myself. Like when I make something, a custom tool for myself to make a poster, for example, I'm more excited about sharing that tool so that other people can use it and make something for themselves versus, keeping it in my safe thing that, oh, I've made this now, I'm not going to share it. It's my .psd file. And in terms of like products or product thinking or making experiences and tools, design, especially product design, can be a bit of an assembly line. There's some UX research, and then I will come in and I don't know, make a bunch of UI frames and kind of plan out what people will need at different points of interaction, and then you hand it over to a developer, and there might be like A/B testing, and you get feedback and you make slight tweaks. But when I'm making tools for myself, I get to be a designer, a developer, and a user. So the thing that I've made, I get to use it, and then I get to learn, oh, maybe I need to add or change this other thing, and then I can come back. Like I can't take credit for this, but there's this brilliant creative technologist at the Creative Lab called Carlo, and he was like, oh, you're describing this as like design becoming more malleable than it was before. And I was like, wow, that's such a great way to put it. The other metaphor that I keep coming back to, because I've also like moved a lot, so it's relevant to me. What do you do with an empty apartment? In an empty apartment, you could spend the first 2-3 days and buy all the furniture you need, knowing what you need. Or you could only buy the things that you absolutely need, but let the furniture come in, like live in this space and let it evolve around you. And I've always chosen the latter. And I found that the space looks so much more like me, and it's so much more useful because it's almost born organically. Like I didn't need that side table, but now I do. And I realized that maybe I needed a big bowl in this particular spot. And if I, was just making that checklist on the first day, the big bowl wouldn't have occurred to me. So yeah, I feel like being able to be these different roles helps you live the design and evolve it. I also find that I'm not killing my designs prematurely as much anymore because again, when you learn stuff, you think about like what you can do, what's possible as a graphic designer. But then you also kind of make rules for not what's not possible or what you might have to hire like additional talent for. Do you have the budget for it? All that stuff. And especially for tinier projects, like personal projects, I always kept them small because it's only me doing it in a room. But now I don't kill an idea immediately. I still think that it might be possible to make it, even if it's just one person making it. So yeah, I think my what ifs have become a little wider with this new skill set.
I'm expecting a very big app coming from you soon.
No,
Very-
no, maybe this is an oversell. Like, I mean, instead of a poster, maybe I'm making like an interactive poster, like just one step ahead of where I was before. I'm not making the next search engine or anything.
I do love the metaphors of the apartment and sort of the iterative process versus
Mhm.
making compromise to sort of make yourself comfortable or get it done rather. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
what keeps you hungry and helps you avoid getting burnt out? Where do you look or what do you do if you need inspiration?
I feel like I get this question and I never know how to answer it because there's no like website that I go to or a place that I go to look for inspiration. I guess I just like do life and let the inspiration come to me. I think it is helpful to have a place to externalize it. So by that, I mean some file where you type it out as soon as you get it, or people around you that you enjoy sharing ideas with and building on it. And I think this like externalizing habit, it doesn't make sense, but like taking it out of your system and making it or talking about it makes space for like new things to stir it. I don't specifically look for inspiration. I think I just have this attitude that no idea is silly or stupid, and that helps to keep inspiration flowing. And I guess I don't get like burnt out or anything because it's about pace for me. I do a little bit every day, and that doesn't feel like a lot. So yeah, consistency, regularity, and it's also like something I'm choosing to do out of fun. This is in retrospect, and maybe I'm like stretching it too far, but in the same way that a syllabus wasn't prescribed to me, just chose to learn what I did. So learning became fun. It's not something that I dread. Like I looked forward to going to school because it was fun. I think I have that same attitude with work. Like it's trickled down somehow that I'm doing this because I want to do it, and it's fun. It's playtime.
Curiosity sort of almost being a learned habit as a young person has kind of followed you through. And yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Sometimes projects also feel like detective work. Like I don't know what will come out of this. And I almost always ask this question in my head, like I wonder how we solve this. Because a project always ends and we always come up with an answer. I just wish I could like predict what we'll do. And it's so exciting to find out how we ended up figuring something out. So yeah, I mean, not everything is fun all the time. Like work is also work, and there's a job to be done. Sometimes you would rather do something else, like watch TV or whatever. But I think just zooming out, it's helpful to have to treat it like this playtime.
I love that. What's one future breakthrough that you think designers should start preparing for now before it hits the mainstream? Are there any bold opinions you have about the future of the industry?
I mean, again, this is like where we talk about AI. I'm actually really impressed how you haven't used AI in any question, but I have included it in my answers, which is very telling of like where my head is at right now. I feel like every time I've predicted something, it's never happened. So um, I I don't know. I can only speak for like how I see my practice evolving, and maybe that's where a bunch of other people's practices will evolve to. I think we're like inventing new middles. Like this playing field is kind of losing its fences. Writers are making films, graphic designers like me are making tools, animators are creative coding and developing their own like engines. Developers can now not just do code, but they can make UI. They have these like UI generator tools. Editors are generating scenes. But I don't think we're like exchanging places. Like I wouldn't say now that I vibe code, I'm a developer. What a developer can do with vibe coding is a completely different level to what I'm doing, but I'm bringing like a visual flavor, or the use cases that I'm thinking of serve my visual needs. So I think we're not exchanging places, we're kind of inventing new middles. And again, with with AI, there's a lot of talk about speed and efficiency. Like what's something that we could do that took 2 hours that I can do in 2 minutes? And that's great for businesses, sure, like you're saving money and all that stuff. And also it changes like who gets to be creative. Like now maybe a project manager can make something that they couldn't before because they didn't have the skills. But I think the future is in novelty. Like all of this at some point, sure, you can make things faster and faster and faster, but what's something that you couldn't have made before AI? Like what's a new format that doesn't exist yet that came because of AI? Like in the same way that the tools that we use have informed so many like tiny design decisions, things like the blandification of logos, for example. We shit on that a lot, but it's also because this type needs to be rendered well on a screen. And so the simpler Blender version maybe renders well on a screen. So yeah, what comes out of these new requirements, what surfaces, that's far more interesting to me. So as you explore these tools, make these discoveries, instead of doing something that you can already do, what's something that you couldn't do before? Like what's an upscale or a step up for you personally and in this space?
I love that we're talking about what could be new versus what could be faster, because I
Mhm.
find that AI is such an interesting technology, but as a product, that's been the main selling point that we keep hearing about. And it's sort of like, who does that really benefit, at the end of the
Yeah.
day?
Mhm.
And sure, if you can do something faster and go eat lunch, great. But at the end of the day, what we really see is it benefiting people other than ourselves and people who already benefit from a lot of benefits.
We're getting richer. Yeah.
If you had to pick a North Star that you're following in terms of your personal satisfaction with your design career, what would that be?
I don't know if I have a big vision. Like, I don't know if I'm trying to solve some big problem. I think it's far more like day-to-day North Stars. And the only connecting thing is it's a little more selfish. Like it's a lot more about self-discovery. Like I want to continue learning about what I'm capable of and involve other people. I don't know if that's the intention, but I think as I'm growing and like making stuff that I didn't think I could make, the stuff that's surprising me more than I thought is the stuff that other people also find useful. This is a silly example, but I read Exhalation by Ted Chiang. It's a collection of short stories. I read a lot of science fiction. It's fun for me. And I think I was so inspired by all of them that I became delusional. I was like, maybe I can write a science fiction short story. I have all these ideas. I just don't know how to make them into a story. So I was like, okay, maybe with vibe coding, I can, try and make a tool that will help me learn. I'll also go for like workshops and, learn the traditional way. But is that a tool that I can make for this very specific sudden Sunday morning new epiphany or goal that I have? And so I made this thing called the story arc engine, where you can kind of go under the hood of any story. So you can enter a book that exists out in the world or a movie, and then it kind of forces itself to break down into the five, major points of a story arc. So then you kind of understand what like a structure of something is, like what was the breaking point, how did they solve it, what's the resolution at the end. So it almost like makes the bones of something visible. And then I added like a little dice icon where you can go at any point in that story arc and change it. You can quite literally edit it. Like in Harry Potter, what if, I don't know, Voldemort and Harry Potter kissed or something? Like, how would that impact the rest of the story? So it's kind of like taking existing work and messing with it. Sometimes it's so much easier to practice with an existing piece of work versus like a blank page. I made this thing for this very specific requirement of mine, and then I obviously put it out in the world and let other people use it. And it was so cool to see how people were using it. Like I think there was someone who announced their retirement through this. Like they made a story of what happened first, what made them decide to retire, and where are they now. Some people were like using it to plan their presentations so that instead of a bunch of bullet points, how can I create some kind of tension and resolution and make it feel like have some storytelling essence in it. So yeah, I think I'm finding that when I can do some self-discovery and learn that, oh, I just made a tool and I've never thought to make a tool. Like when I was in design school, I didn't think I would be making experiences that are so fleshed out. I thought I'd be a part of a pipeline. But yeah, being able to make stuff for such hyper-specific things, I think I'm getting a lot of joy in seeing how it finds use in other people's lives in unexpected ways. I don't think I answered your question at all. There's no North Star here. I guess North Star is like self-discovery. I guess that's a good way to sum it up.
I don't care if you answered the question because with that idea of I went through a phase where I have 3 kids, and we watch, I don't know if you've seen, but Disney Pixar has these short films in the app, and they're like 2 or 3 minutes long. And these films are so powerful. Like I'm sobbing by the end of them. I don't understand how they write such a compelling arc in this. And so as a marketer, I'm like, it's incredible to see. I'm watching this thing for 3 minutes, and by the end, I'm a totally different person. And so I love the idea of opening that, under the hood of that, because in my head, I'm like, how do I do this? How do I get into that space? And I love that you created a tool to sort of do that exact thing in a different genre.
But again, like in the same way that working at a type foundry or interning for 3 months taught me how little I know and so much more goes into it. This is another like teaching moment. Okay, a story is not just these bones. There's so much more to storytelling. Sure, I might have some version of something, but a writer using this tool to make a quick sketch and then, the wealth of knowledge that they already have to build on it, like they will make you cry and change you. My thing might not, but it's like satisfying a quick, urge to try and learn something, and then I can spend years on it and get better. Yeah.
There's that curiosity coming up again, though.
Yeah.
There's a lot of change happening in design and also the world right now. Some of it feels scary. What gives you hope?
I feel quite at the center of a lot of this change because of where I work. And I've, again, like the writer example I gave you, sure, these fears are valid. And yeah, I think it's helpful to treat any kind of new tech with a bit of caution. I do tend to be a little over optimistic with stuff, and this is like something I should fix or work on. But it's so cool to see that all these huge, new tech that's coming out, it might be making stuff democratic, but emerging in new tech in the hands of people and what they make is great, but emerging in new tech in the hands of artists that already have the craft and the know-how, it's always going to be at another level. Like haven't felt much when I watch a lot of AI videos, but when filmmakers use AI in their practice, I might shed a tear. A project manager making some stuff, it might go viral and it'll fizzle down, but I think there's so much more in addition to knowing how to use a tool that comes in handy. Another like very simple example is filmmaking is so much more than video making. A filmmaker knows how to string a story, how to, build tension, knows how to direct a character's performance, knows sound design, cinematography, all these other things that might seem like supplements, but they can change how effective a film is. And so someone with all that knowledge that uses these tools versus someone who's just using them, there's bound to be a huge difference. So I think just being able to see that artistry is still so important to create something that lasts makes me a little hopeful. That it doesn't mean, the end of careers or anything. It just means a bit of leveling up.
Khyati, where can listeners find you if they want to follow your story more?
I hang out at the mall a lot. The mall, social media, I guess. That's the mall of the internet. Yeah, I honestly, please don't go to my website. It's so outdated. It's like, I don't remember the last time I touched it. It's still that like shop in the desert. But yeah, I guess in the neighborhood shops like these podcasts and talks. Yeah, I do share my work on social media. I'm trying to be a little more like I'm inspired by the vibe coding stuff. I'm trying to be a little more open. I'm not sure I'm going to do this yet, but I was thinking, oh, what if I just did a weekend call where I invited like 5 other people that I don't know, and then I shared my screen and did a vibe coding project. Like every time I've introduced someone to it, instead of just talking about it, it was so much more helpful to do a little project together on the spot in those like 10, 15 minutes. Even if it's a really shitty project, but at least we made something together, and it's so much easier to learn by doing than, just by theory. So yeah, maybe I'll do that. I don't know. I want to. I just need to find time for it.
I think you have to now. The ability of recording
Damn it. Now receipts. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I think a lot of people don't even know where to begin with something like that. But I think it's so cool. It's such a cool idea to just get in there and do it with them and sort of lead like that. I think it's a really neat idea. So, and I'll say I found your website to be an oasis in the desert. I thought it was cool.
Oh, really?
Your video on there was really neat. So I wouldn't change.
Okay. Thank you for visiting my shop in the desert.
Khyati, thanks so much for taking the time to chat. I really enjoyed having you on.
Thank you. This was fun.
And thanks to our listeners for tuning in. We'll see you next time on Design Icons.